Chad, is truly a local boy, that cares tremendously about his community, that cares tremendously about youth and youth development, under.
Oh, you're on.
Well, hello and welcome to Pop Live, the show. This is our very first inaugural episode, and as you can see, we are going by the seat of our pants. This is the first show, so you're going to have to forgive us as we may have some technical difficulties. We may not be completely prepared, but that's why we do it live, so you get to see the real, raw, authentic, uncut, unfiltered show, and we're gonna have some fun. Regardless of how the technicalities go, we got a really great show for you. And just to give you a brief explanation as to what the show is about, every week we're gonna go every week on Tuesday at 1:30, and we're gonna talk about things for nonprofits, and some small businesses may also gain some great knowledge with this as well. But we're gonna cover topics about virtual fundraisers, marketing, communication, social media, website, all that kind of stuff, all the things that we do in our production company, and give you tips and pointers and things that have helped our clients with how they run their communications with their audiences and such. So rather than us keep all that information to ourselves, we thought we'd share it with you. So I wanted to start off by asking the question of, bringing to the topic at hand today. A lot of the nonprofits that we see here in our state, across the globe, they do such amazing work, but it's really difficult for them to explain, put into words what it is they actually do. Many times when we work with our nonprofit clients, the first time I ask them, what do you do? The first thing they do is give me a laundry list of different programs, and they also give us like a bunch of statistics and things, and it can be overwhelming, and it can also be something where I don't, as an audience member who's new to this, don't quite understand why. Why should I care? Why should I listen? Why does this matter? And that's what happens a lot of the times with our nonprofits when in their communications, whether it's through their websites, through the videos they produce, through their newsletters. A lot of the times they are communicating in a way that comes across as a different language to their desired audience. And that's where the disconnect comes into play. So wouldn't you rather be able to say something about your organization and your business and have the person respond with, "That sounds amazing. Tell me more." Well, my name's Nolan. This is Jamie. Jamie, pull yourself up here.
Hello.
This is Jamie, and we are doing exactly this kind of work with nonprofits. And we are learning and teaching you how to speak the language of your desired audience and get them to care about what you have to say. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Jamie doesn't want to be on camera, so she does have an opinion though, and she will jump in from time to time, especially if I'm saying something wrong or totally off, inaccurate. She'll jump on and talk with us as well. But for the most part, this is going to be like maybe a half-hour show. So I know a lot of you are at work right now, and so I'm not going to keep you too long. But I wanted to cover 3 topics that are vitally important to having a successful communication with your desired audience. And I think if you can at least get the idea of these 3 bullet points, it'll make things a lot more clear and give you a better footing as to how to improve your communications with your audience. And then during this, since we are live, we have the ability to chat with you as well. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, throw them in the chat, and Jamie can bring them up and we can answer your questions live on here. And if you're catching this on demand, the replay, yes, I won't be able to answer you live here in the video, but we can answer you in the chat and in the comments. So go ahead and still throw in your questions and comments in there, and we can continue on with our discussion on the posts. And so whether you're watching us on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live, thank you and welcome to Pop Show Live, or Pop Live Show, the Pop Live Show. I gotta still work on this title. Welcome to the Pop Live Show. All right, so the first thing that we wanted to go over was probably the most important part. Before you can even get into figuring out what to say to your audience, the most important thing is determining who your audience is. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of nonprofits have is they just want to talk to everybody. If you say, who are you trying to talk to? Everybody. We want everybody to know about us. The problem with that is it kind of goes to I'm going to pull up a personal experience to give you a better idea of what I'm trying to communicate here with why it's so important to have a specific audience. And that is when I was trying to start a clothing line company. I wanted to make t-shirts, designer t-shirts for men. And I had the thought of, I want to make a t-shirt company where everybody, every male, no matter what your likes and preferences are, you will like our shirts and you will want to wear our shirts. So instead of having a niche or a direct target audience of age or even location or personal, hobbies and whatnot, I was like, it's a lifestyle brand for any lifestyle and every lifestyle. And so I made shirts with things that dealt with Asian influences. I dealt with designs that had more like a skater look. I had older designs, younger designs, and it was just, if you looked at my catalog of shirts, it was a wide variety of shirts. There was no identity to it. There's no focus, rhyme, or reason. And whether you were a skater, whether you were a young person or old person, you didn't quite connect with the brand because all you would connect with is maybe that one shirt. But if you weren't a fan of the brand, the design could look like whatever it did, and it didn't really matter to you because you may buy that one shirt and then that's the last thing you ever did. So I wasn't able to build an audience. I wasn't able to build a following. And eventually my clothing line never really got off the ground. We lost a lot of money, let's just say that. So the same goes for when you have a nonprofit or a small business and you're trying to communicate to the community like who we are, because a lot of these nonprofits are just saying doing amazing work, and they're saying, man, if people only knew what we did, they would see, the work that we're doing is so important and so necessary for our community. And 10 times out of 10, I agree with them with that. The problem is that when you say to them, well, who are you trying to reach? And they don't have a specific target demo, then that's why the message becomes so bland and generic and broad that it doesn't really resonate or connect with anybody. You're just kind of, it sounds like wah, 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 because you just want to keep it so generic and blasé that the persons that would care about you, you're not speaking in their language and they don't hear it. It doesn't catch their attention. So rather than saying, hey, we want everybody to know about us, who is the most important audience that you would want to reach because you could get the most impact with? Whether your impact is if you're trying to raise money or trying to raise supporters and volunteers, whether you're trying to get people that could help support you in the legal aspect, what is it called when they go to to the state capitol and stuff?
Legislation?
Yeah, whether you need help with support in legislation and all that kind of stuff. There's specific areas that you want to see growth and you need help and support in most. When you can figure out who that person is that would ideally help you with this cause that you're trying to reach, that's when you can figure out what your voice is, what you want to say. So try to really fine-tune and figure out who it is you're trying to talk to, what their age demographic is, male or female, what area of the world or island that they live in, what's important to them, what are hot button topics that get them either emotionally invested or interested in, those kind of things. And you can even get it down to the nitty gritty of like what type of topics do they tend to gravitate towards. Like imagine if you're looking on their Facebook news feed, like what kind of things do you see them like reading and clicking on liking and commenting, those types of things. Because once you're able to identify that, then you know when you start doing your posts or creating your videos or writing your newsletters, you'll know what kind of things to talk about and how to say them that would get them to go, this person gets me, or this organization gets me. I feel in line with them. Because if you can get them to relate to you and feel connected to you, that's when they want to support you. That's when they'll want to donate, or when they will want to volunteer or want to stand up and champion for you. So audience is recognizing and defining who your specific audience is the number one thing that we always go through first. And you'll be surprised how difficult that is for people when they first meet with us.
I want to add, so I think a lot of times it's hard because they need to, like the organization needs to talk to all these different, they have to talk to all these different segments, but just pick one for whatever, like if you're writing a newsletter, who is that newsletter for? If you're on Instagram, who is the Instagram for? So the newsletter isn't for your donors, your consumers, and whatever else. So you got to be specific in that one venue.
That's a great point, because you can say like, well, we have a lot of people that we need to talk to, or a lot of issues that are important to us. And that's fine that you have those, but imagine that you only have this small amount of time to talk to this person. So rather than thinking that you just have an infinite amount of attention from this particular audience member, imagine you just have one thought or one argument or one compelling story to get their attention. You have to figure out what is the most important right now, because you can tell them about the other stuff later once they are hooked in and once they are bought into you and your mission and your organization and are connected to you. But if you lose them in that first meeting or that first impression, then you can say whatever you want, they're not going to hear it. So that's a great point that Jamie brought up, is that when we work with our clients, we always have to chip away at some of the things that they want to talk about, or the audience, vast audience members that they want to reach, and say, okay, well, let's go in order of importance. And once we can tackle the most important one first, then we can expand to the next one. So a lot of the times for our nonprofits, they'll say, well, the most important thing we need right now is funds. We need some funding support. We need donors. We need to grow our donor base. So we need to talk to donors. So then we'd say, okay, well, what kind of donors do you need? Like, who do you see donating the most and making the most impact for you, like that you connect to most? And it could be something where the people that donate the most tend to donate to the most when it relates to a certain program or segment of your organization. So a lot of times it's like we see this a lot when it deals with children and kids. Like that can be a really big successful connection point for a lot of organizations, because for many people in the community, they want to help children. Children are our future. They're innocent. They they tug at the heartstrings, so they feel like that work is so important. And so if you say, okay, well, if that's our focus, we need to figure out what type of people we need to talk to, or tend to gravitate towards that particular program and what's important to them. And just really try to fine tune it as much as possible, because the broader it is, the broader your message gets, and the more generic it gets, and the less impactful it is. And Jamie, you have anything to add to that?
No.
Do we have any way of checking to see if there's any comments or chat?
I have it open. Oh.
Oh, okay.
Say hi to Dave.
Hey, Dave. Is it?
Mayetta.
Oh, okay. Hello, David. Dave is joining us all the way from New Zealand, and we're not only jealous that he's in beautiful New Zealand, but they're also a lot safer there. So enjoy the safeness and comfort of New Zealand there. But yeah, if anybody has any questions about, this topic of understanding who your target audience is and whatnot, throw them in the comment section. I'll move on, but if we need to go back to it later, we can. But the next important thing is, now that we've established who you're trying to talk to, who this audience is, we need to find out, what do they care about? Because I think the next mistake organizations make is that they want to talk about what's important to them. So they always say, when we talk to them about their particular organization, they say, oh, this is what, we really want to do this, and this is what we're trying to accomplish, and these are the, programs that we want to highlight. And then I say, okay, well, let's take a look at who your audience is that we're trying to reach in particular. Now that we've identified them, do they care about program B's story or the things that you just mentioned? And they go, oh, actually, what they care more about is, X, Y, and Z instead, and then it's like, okay, so since that's important to them, that's the direction we need to go with as far as the things that we're going to cover and talk about. Because if you start spouting off about things that are important to you, but aren't important to your audience, or don't resonate with them, or are not hot button issues for them, then they're going to say, well, this doesn't really matter to me. This doesn't affect me. I have no reason to listen anymore. So again, we only have this finite amount of opportunity and time to connect with them, to give them the quick elevator pitch, so to speak, of why they should care about your organization and why they should support or connect with it. And if you don't hit them on that first initial, subject line of, this is what we do and it matters to you because you love this, or this is obviously right in your community or whatnot, they're not going to feel like there's a reason to stick around, So when it comes to, and this happens for videos, for your newsletters, your social media posts, all of those things, you got to imagine that even though you put out the most beautiful video or put out the most fancy website, if there's nothing there that is interesting to the person you're trying to reach, they're not going to watch the remaining 2.5 minutes of the video, or they're not going to scroll through the rest of the website, or they're not going to read the rest of the email. The first thing that they see is their litmus test for them to check, is this something that I want to spend my time on? And if they can't say yes to that answer, then they're just going to move on. There's so many other things that they could be spending their time on. There's a great new Netflix series out there, or a way more important email. All those kind of things are out there to distract them. So you have to think about what it is that you can say to this audience member that you're trying to reach that would make them care about the message. Like, so trying to figure out what they care about most.
Do you have an example of that? Because I think people might not get, because you just said, what would you say to make them care? But I think what we're saying is, what do they care about? And you got to speak to that before they're going to listen to you. And
right. Do you have, do you have something, because the thing is, we have so many campaigns that we've worked on and such. I'm trying to think of one that would be a really great example of that. Do you have one?
I'm mostly thinking about the schools.
Okay, so that's a great example. So while the schools aren't necessarily, you can say that they are very similar, or some of them even are nonprofits, but school is a great example. So when you look at nonprofits, everybody goes, yeah, nonprofits are great. They're helping the community, but they all need help, right? Same thing with schools. Like, schools are great. They're teaching our kids. And when you lay out schools next to each other, a lot of the times you hear the same things. Like, oh, we have great education. our teachers are really, phenomenal. They care about the kids. We provide a safe environment and, things of that nature. There's across the board, schools pretty much say the same things when it comes to, like, say, private schools, for example. So when you're trying to pitch your private school to prospective parents, you'll see a lot of similar themes and similar messages. So when we work with schools, we always try to figure out what is the one thing that is so unique about your school that your parents, when they do come and take the tour, that they go, I didn't know this about you guys. I love this. And that is usually the driving force and factor as to why they chose your school over others. And it's interesting because, like, these schools that we work with, they have all this experience in data, so to speak, and yet they never actually apply it because they go, that's a great point. A lot of the parents always mention that they really love the fact that there are 2 teachers in the classroom, to each class, giving more attention individually to students versus the traditional classroom that has 1. And it's like, this is just a generic example, by the way. I'm not trying to call out a specific school, but when we hear that is kind of the majority of the parents bring that up during their tour or open house, or if they write any kind of feedback and they say that's the thing that really stood out to them most, then that should be the thing that you talk about in your communications with potential parents, because obviously that's a hot button topic. That's something that's really unique to your school, that you do really well, and that the parents that were interested in the school found compelling enough to make them want to take a deeper look at you or ultimately decide to go with you. And that's also could be the thing that keeps them there and keeps them happy and keeps them proud that their family is at your school. So we've had experiences where they want to talk about their first video out. They want to talk about, the statistics of X amount % of our students go on to the school of their choice for college, or we have X amount of students in National Honor Society, and we have these many programs, and we have basketball and football and all these things, which it's like a lot of schools can say the same thing, but not very many can say something to the effect of, we have 2 teachers per classroom, or that, we have a single gender education, which is scientifically, proven to help with, the learning rates of children, all these kind of different points and unique aspects of your organization. Like, that should be what you start with your focus on first, because that's what's going to be compelling and interesting to your audience, in this case, prospective parents. Do you think that's fair, Jamie?
I think so. My mind kind of wandered, sorry.
So when Jamie's mind wanders, that's because I start to kind of go on a little too much. And the problem with this is that usually when I'm having this conversation with, like, a potential client and stuff, we have a lot of feedback and stuff.
Yeah.
And it stops me so I don't keep going. So this is new for me too. Like, while I've done lives before, this style, I got to get a little more honed in. And while I have my notes and stuff, this is very new for me. And so you have to forgive me if you are like Jamie and started to wander off. I hope you get the point and the idea, because a lot of nonprofits and small businesses that we talk to tend to have the answers right there in front of them all the time. And the best way to get the answer of, well, what does my audience care about most? Just ask yourself, well, what is my audience? What do my supporters? What do my donors? What do my customers tell me they love about us the most? Or what do they donate to the most? Things of that nature. When you can answer that, you can probably get the answer of what does my audience care about most. And so that's how we tackle the second issue that we find is very important when coming to communicate with your audience and your desired audience. And then the last point that we wanted to make, which is something that we've really worked on a lot as a production company, is connecting our clients with the audience that they're trying to reach through relatable stories and emotions, which starts, which is much more effective than listing, statistics or the operations of the organization, because that's usually if you look at a lot of websites or videos, for a lot of organizations, the majority of what they talk about in the video is, here at Company X, we service this population, and they throw out statistics, and we have this program which serves this community. Da, da, da. Join us today, something to that effect. But what it just sounds like is more like if I was to meet somebody in person, and not nowadays because we can't meet in person, but if I were to meet somebody and say hello to them, we would have a genuine conversation where we're talking to each other versus me saying, "Hi Jamie, my name is Nolan Hong and I work at Pop Creative Media and we make videos and we produce content for businesses," and not even giving her a chance to feel like she's a part of the communications and I'm just talking at her. And that's kind of the feel you get when you have this type of content where you're just spouting off statistics and stats and descriptions of programs. Instead, if we want to connect to them on things that they care about, like we had just mentioned, the way you can connect with people and vibe with them on a level that's familiar to them is through stories, relatable stories. And so a lot of our content is filled with, through the voices of those who are in it. So for example, when we're working with nonprofits, we want to get the stories and the perspectives of not only the community members who are benefiting from the nonprofit's work, but understanding their situation. Because, for instance, if there's a nonprofit that is helping with food distribution for those in need, the concept is very easy to understand. Oh, there's people out there that can't afford food. This nonprofit gets them food and gives them food so they can eat. But where the storytelling and the connection to the soul of the problem becomes more effective is when we hear a story of a family member who tells us how they got to this point and what kind of situation they're in, and how this benefit or this service has specifically helped them through things. Then it's like, oh, it becomes relatable, where it's like, I could see myself being in that situation, or I know someone who is in that situation, and I see now through the eyes and the words of this person who could be my auntie, could be me, could be my sister, could be my brother, my uncle. It could be anybody that I know. That could be me in that person's shoes. And I now feel empathy and a connection to this situation. So now the service and the organization that is helping them has so much more meaning to me and makes me feel like this organization needs to continue to do this work, because I want people like the one I'm listening to continue to win in life and to help our community grow and become stronger. So to hear from the people themselves, or to hear about specific examples of how this program is helping and making a difference and impacting, is so much more effective than just simply saying, this is the program, these are what we do, this is the statistics. So imagine, hearing that story of this family that has gone through the struggles, and then through the help of this organization and the relationships, how now they're doing well, and how life is improved, and how necessary it was for their story and whatnot, versus here we have a program that delivers food to the needy. We serve 70% of the population in the greater rural areas of Oahu. It's just like it's two very different feelings. And
I'm going to interrupt.
Sure.
I think for nonprofits, because they're used to doing grant requests and reports back to the people that they got the grant from.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for that stuff, the stats and stuff is really important, and that's how they show their impact and what work they've been able to accomplish. But that kind of stuff, and I think in those reports and stuff, they'll have those stories, but that just supplements the statistics. So when you're talking to the public, it's switched. So those statistics are nice at the end, but first you got to make them care, and making somebody care doesn't normally happen just from a number. It happens from hearing about another person's experience.
Yeah, that's so true, because we forget that a lot of the nonprofits, they're in this nonprofit world where they use nonprofit language amongst their sector, when they're talking in grant language. The things that they are required of day to day is a very different language than speaking to the public and the general community. And that's something that we always have difficulty conveying with our nonprofit organizations, because the nonprofits will talk in words and verbiage that don't make sense to the common person. And so a lot of the times we'll be in these, hour-long meetings, and we'll have to go through some of our notes and go, okay, when you say this term, what does that mean? And they're like, oh, that's right, you don't know, what this acronym stands for, or what we mean by this, So it's almost like part of what has to happen too is learning a new language of common person talk, and so just remember that, what's been so ingrained in, because I think a lot of nonprofits haven't, for the most part, it's a new experience of talking directly to, the community, through social media and videos and whatnot. Before, there are communications with the community where it's maybe a PSA, a couple PSAs throughout the year, and through maybe some pamphlets that they printed out and such. But the majority of their communication is amongst the nonprofit sector and in the grant proposals and in the legislative community, which those areas are totally different, audience and different language. So nowadays, when we're doing so much communication with the general public through social media, like daily posts, through weekly newsletters, and through posting new videos of different, it's so much easier to make video content or publish blogs and newsletters and whatnot, that it's almost like a new chapter for nonprofits. And so you can't just jump in and speak the same way you normally do to the grantee or grantors and legislators and stuff. It's like you got to put back on your citizen's cap and normal person hat and go, oh, these are the basic terms and terminology that I need to use so that they can understand and connect. And it's a lot more simple, usually, the conversation, because a lot of times our meetings at first with them is so complicated, and there's a lot of emotions involved with, the frustrations of the things you got to work with. And it's like, we got to set all of that aside and get to the core of what simply is the basic message, so that, this new audience that you're trying to reach can grasp the concept and understand it.
We have a question.
Yay, finally! I hope it's not from Dave.
No,
Because it's
not
probably
Dave.
something going to be really mean and
He's
deprecating.
being very helpful.
Oh, thank
He
you.
tagged
Okay.
somebody and thought it would be helpful for them. Thank you, Dave.
Dave's going to really hate me now.
So Linda said, are you noticing trends regarding whether TV, radio, or social media in reaching more general audiences in Hawaii nowadays? Love the educational content and tips on engagement. Mahalo.
Oh, thanks, Linda. So I think, well, Jamie, do you have any thoughts this
No,
initially?
you go first.
Okay, so Jamie and I actually come from traditional media, so this is almost like, I feel guilty because it's almost like sacrilegious that I'm speaking up against, traditional media, which is, I come from print, radio, and television advertising. And to me, for nonprofits especially, the traditional means of advertising is just it's not sustainable financially. The cost of advertising and communicating through traditional media is just way too expensive. And for those who aren't familiar with it, and I've been out of it for a while, but when we were in it, to get any kind of effective advertising, your budget had to be at minimum $3,000 a month.
A month?
Yeah,
Wow.
but that was you kind of hit and miss, at that kind of budget. You could still spend that much, and if your campaign isn't right and all that stuff, if whatever you're trying to say isn't hitting, you're just flushing that money down the toilet. But for traditional media, I think the ones that it works really well for are the ones that can afford just the repetitiveness of it, where it's more for branding, in my opinion. When you just keep hearing the name over and over, the organization, you're not. That's where you get the benefit of traditional marketing, is when you think, oh, I need to find an auto store to buy a new car. What do I think about? Well, I always keep hearing, this company over and over, their jingle. Okay, let me go check them out and stuff. But for nonprofits, it's a little more difficult because, like I said, to get people to care about you, they really have to understand you, and it's a lot deeper of a connection than a 30-second jingle or a quick snippet of hey, we do this and we help these people, call us now and donate now. It's really hard to get anyone to really commit to that. So I always have felt that, online and social media, and especially, like, we've seen a lot of really effective connections through email newsletters. A lot of people used to think that email newsletters were kind of a waste because it's like it just goes to people's spam. But if you're doing it correctly and you're providing people with something of value, whether it's information or content, and you don't just use it as a marketing, like an advertisement, where the ones that fail are the ones that their newsletter is basically one long repetitive advertisement each week or each month, and that can turn into spam. But when it's something of like for us, our newsletters, we always remember not to be like, hey, we're doing a special on this, or we're making these kind of videos. It's like, hey, let's tell stories, let's tell relevant content that will show who we are as people, and then people can kind of get the idea of your organization through you. Sorry, I'm going on a little tangent there. But I think that with social media, it's free, so it's a lot more affordable, but it's also a direct connection for your audience to you and your organization. And social media, your newsletters, your websites, those are direct access for people who want to learn more about you and know more about you. So the way traditional advertising used to work was like you have a commercial to bring people awareness to your company, and then you try to funnel them to your brick and mortar location. It's like, hey, we're this store that sells mattresses. Come on down now. We got a great sale on queen size mattresses. Come on down. We're at 44472 King Street, And then when they get to the door, that's where you make the magic happen. You try to sell them because now you got their attention. They're here in your store. Well, nowadays you can't especially for nonprofits, you can't like bring potential donors and supporters into your doors and guide them through your hallways and tell them about the different programs and the different communities that you serve and what you do and stuff. So, but what they can do is do that virtually. And so they can go onto your website, learn more about you. They can connect with you on social media, and they can see through your posts, your missions, the communities that you serve, the type of work that you're doing, all that kind of stuff. So your audience can connect with you on such a deeper, more valuable, meaningful level now. And because you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars a month on it, you can manage these things yourself, because you don't have to hire us to produce videos for you and whatnot. Like, there are so many things that are within your control and power that you can influence and use, that I think that, to me, the online and social media platforms of communicating to your audience can be much more effective and much more affordable for organizations than traditional media.
I think, like, if you can get a partnership, like with one of the networks for a certain campaign, and they're going to be giving you airtime, like they're going to talk about it during the broadcast,
Like the morning news.
Yeah. And they'll bring your executive director on. Like, that kind of thing is super awesome for reaching a big audience. But that only happens for a very few, like very limited number of nonprofits every year.
And only a limited amount of time in the year, like maybe one time a year.
Yeah. So focusing more on your social, and our idea with social is to try to use social to drive people to your newsletter, because they always say, like, your social media isn't owned. Zuckerberg could just change the algorithm tomorrow and nobody's going to see your stuff. So you want to get them onto your newsletter so that you have a direct way of reaching the people that care about what you do. So it's try to think about it as a funnel. So, and you have way more control over that, and it's free. You don't have to do advertising.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit more about the newsletter argument? Because I think even I am guilty of this as well. When we first started learning about newsletters and the importance of it, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to put time and energy into a newsletter. Like, I get newsletters all the time and I throw them in the trash. Like, I don't read them. Like, that seems like a waste of time. But after learning more about it and then actually now seeing the effects of it and how it can be such a powerful tool, I'm a believer in it as well. So you were the one that kind of really sold me on it because of your research on it and all the things you learned. So can you talk a little bit about why newsletters are so important? And
I think it's going to get long. Maybe that should be a different thing.
Okay. Well, that'll be a good teaser for you to continue to tune in. Maybe that'll be next week's topic. Again, we're doing this every week, every Tuesday at 1:30 Hawaii Standard Time. But yeah, newsletters, we've learned, have been so effective, and especially for nonprofits, because that can really help with fundraising and getting your audience really involved and connected with the work that you're doing. Well, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, a lot of our clients thought, social media is the be-all, end-all. We got to be on all platforms because everybody's doing all of them, and that's where we put all the effort into. And so they just, put a lot of time into that only. But as Jamie mentioned, they all are just, they're funnels, they're pathways and stuff. So, this will be another topic for another episode, but you don't have to be on every single social media platform. We'll talk more about that in a future episode. But yeah, the idea is go through the avenues where your audience is going to be most accessible, where you can be the most effective in reaching that target audience that we established in the first section of today's talk. We know who we're trying to reach. We now know what they care about. What is the platform that would reach them the fastest and most effectively? And a lot of the times, traditional media isn't the best option, whether it's affordability, whether it's effectiveness, and all that kind of stuff. The best scenario, I think, would be you do have what Jamie described as like a partnership with a network where they do feature you on like the morning news or something, and you have this wide audience now that's like, wow, I've never heard of this organization, or I love what they're doing with this campaign. I want to learn more about it. So that at the end of the segment, they say, well, to learn more about this organization's drive, go to their website at www.xyz.com. You want to be able to, now that you have this large audience, they're going to your social media or they're going to your website, you want that experience to be the best chance for them to now get hooked, because we've just led them to your spot. And then now if your website is designed right, the messaging is correct to this audience that you're trying to reach, now they can get really hooked into it. So that's how you could use that.
I just wanted to add in something. I didn't tell you this, but I was just doing a keyword search on Google earlier, and I just Googled Hawaii nonprofits, and one of the nonprofits that we work for or work with, they were I don't know if they're smaller, but they felt like nobody knew about them before. And when I did the ranking for the keyword stuff today, they showed up as 3 times more Googled than the next highest Hawaii nonprofit, which is a big name one.
Wow.
And I was shocked, but I think it's just because like using social media, and they also got a partnership during Christmas. So you can really use that to your advantage, and if you get that kind of partnership, follow it up with everything else that you do online, because people will look you up.
Yeah, because that's the saddest thing, is if you got this big large audience that's never heard of you that now is interested in you, and then they go to your website, and your website
or your social
and it tells them nothing, and they're just like so underwhelmed that they go, like all that excitement and intrigue and interest is gone like that.
I think we should go. Do you see the child dancing?
No, I choose to ignore that. That is not something that resonates with me.
I went to this shop because you could see him on the side of your camera dancing. And you want to see him again?
Let's see.
What are you doing? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, we should go.
All right, so in conclusion, so we talked about the importance of identifying who specifically you want to reach. And we, again, mentioned it. You might want to reach a large audience, but what's the most important one in the beginning? Like, we got to go in order of importance, because we really want to fine tune who that audience is that you want to reach. Once we establish that, what do? We find out what's important to them so that we know what to talk to them about. Because if you don't talk to them about anything that matters to them, they're not going to listen to you, and you're going to lose that audience. So second thing is find out what matters to them, and that's how you figure out what you're going to say to them. And then third is you want to connect to them through relatable stories and emotions versus statistics. And
what is that music?
Apparently our neighborhood is having an outdoor concert right now. It's actually an ice cream truck. It's a shave ice truck.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Outside?
Yeah. So this is a great example. There's a lot of kids on our street, so.
There's an ice cream truck?
This is why you want to watch this live, because you never know what's going to happen.
Let's go!
Okay, so we got to go get this shave ice right now. But remember, stories and emotions, that's how you connect with your audience versus statistics and all the boring stuff. Learning to talk the language of your audience. All right? That's it for today's inaugural episode of the Pop Live Show. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to all of you for those who tuned in. And Linda, great question. Thank you for being a part of this. And let's continue the conversation in the comment section below. So we'll be still on checking the comments to answer any follow-up questions you may have. And we'll see you next week, Tuesday at 1:30 Hawaii Standard Time. Bye.